Welcome back to Talking with Trista. Today's episode is a teaching moment on addiction. Now, I've titled this episode Freedom from Addiction. After last episode with Felicia Williams titled The Hidden Addiction, I received an email from a young lady stating how that interview encouraged her to come out of hiding regarding an addiction that she was dealing with. So the purpose of this episode is to help someone to identify and understand the root causes of their addictive behaviors so that they can take the necessary steps needed to come out of hiding and to overcome their addiction. Are you hurting and dealing with a lot of emotional pain? Maybe your father abandoned you as a child, or your mother didn't want you as a child and you often felt neglected or rejected from her. Or maybe you were abused as a child. Do you find yourself with an empty hole, a void in your heart that nothing seems to fill? Do you find yourself constantly searching for things to fill that void, but instead you find yourself in a repeated cycle, a vicious cycle of addiction? There's so many people in the world today dealing with addictions, and the sad thing is that many people don't even believe that they have a problem, or they're in denial. Deception is the number one strategy that the devil, Satan, our enemy, whatever you want to call him, uses to keep us in bondage so that we won't be able to experience the abundant life that Jesus Christ died to give us. John chapter 10 verse 10 says that the thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy, but Jesus came for us to have life and have it more abundantly. He came to give us a rich and satisfying life, but you'll never experience that life if you don't come out of darkness. Now, there's a reason for everything that we do, whether good or bad. And before you can fully understand your addiction, you must first understand the root causes of your behavior. Or in other words, you need to understand why you do the things that you do. And whether you know it or not, the devil and demonic spirits constantly, day in and day out, tempt and influence us to sin. Now, I'm not saying that they make us sin, because the choice is ultimately ours. But the problem is not alert, as the Bible states in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8, to stay alert and watch out for the devil. For he prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking who he can devour. And if you think about a lion, once a lion attacks something, it destroys it. And that's the job of the enemy. His job is to kill, steal, and destroy us, literally. Now again, it's not the temptation that's the problem, but it's when we give in to those temptations and become a slave to sin is when addiction begins. For Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12 reads, and I'm going to read this for you. For we do not fight against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places. Now that you know who your real enemy is, now let's talk about what an addiction is. An addiction is a strong and harmful need to regularly have something or to do something regardless of the consequences. I like to think of an addiction as being a slave to sin and being unable to stop sinning. For an example, an addiction can be drinking alcohol, doing drugs, overeating food, having sex, shopping, gambling, lying. The list of addictions goes on and on. There's too many to name. Now we're going to talk about how addictions are formed. Now, addictions are just attempts to fill voids and empty spots in our lives. Now, we all have needs. We all want to be loved. We all want to be cared for. We all want to be accepted. But if the problem comes when we go outside of God's will and try to meet those needs on our own. Now, I'm going to read for you 7 God-given needs that we all have. And if there's any words that you do not understand, please feel free to Google and look them up. One need is we all have a need for dignity, authority, blessings, provision, security. We all want to feel purposeful and meaningful. We all want to be free, and we all want love and companionship. Now, these are all God-given needs, and there's nothing wrong with desiring these things, but the problem comes when we go outside of doing things God's way to try to meet these needs and fill these voids. And again, that's when addiction begins. Now, when we try to meet these needs outside of God's will for our life, we open ourselves up for demonic strongholds. Now, demonic strongholds are simply demonic spirits that work within us to control and influence our soul. Now, your soul is made up of your mind, your will, and your emotions. Now, your mind is the way you think. Your will is what you do, and your emotions is what you feel. Now, the purpose of these demonic spirits are to destroy you literally to the point of death, and also to separate you and ruin your relationship with God and others. Now, you'll actually know if you're being influenced by a demonic stronghold, or as I like to call them, a demonic spirit, because it'll be that area in your life to where it seems like you're always constantly having problems. And no matter what you do, it just seems like you can't get free in this area. Next, we're going to talk about the 3 most common ways that demons enter our lives. Now, the first one we hit it on briefly earlier. The first way is when we go outside of God's will to try to meet our basic needs. The second way is through childhood trauma. Maybe you've been abused verbally, physically, sexually. Maybe your father walked out on you. You felt abandoned. Maybe you were bullied in school. Those are just some examples on how childhood trauma can affect us as adults. Now, the third way, and this is a way that's pretty much beyond our control, I like to call them ancestral or generational sins. Sins that those before you may have committed that you're not even aware of. For instance, your father could have been an alcoholic, and now you find yourself abusing alcohol, or your mother could have been an abuser and now you find yourself abusing. Or for instance, there could have been family incest, and now you find yourself doing the same thing that those before you have done. Those are just some examples and most common ways of how demons can enter. Now, I wanted to just pause for a second before getting into the next section of the video, just to let you know that below this video in the comment section, I have attached a workbook packet that will help you to demolish your strongholds, or shall I say demonic spirits that are influencing your life. Now, this packet is titled Demolishing Your Strongholds. Now, this packet actually includes 3 chapters to help you first to identify any demonic spirits that may be influencing your life, and also to help you to break free and to stay free. Now, this video is actually going to be a 2-part video. In this first video today, I'm going to help you to identify the root cause of your addiction. And in the second video, after you have gone through this packet and identify any demonic spirits that are influencing you, in the second video will be airing the second Friday in September. I want you to work in your packet and make sure to complete your packet thoroughly and be prepared for the second video so that we can break free from these addictions. We're going to also work along together on how you can break free from those strongholds and stay free. Now, what I want you to do is flip to page 10 for me. If you look here on your page, you'll see some bold words. These bold words are also known as the demonic spirits that are present in your life. For instance, you'll see the spirit of confusion, the spirit of doubt, the spirit of unbelief. And if you scroll down here on page 10, you'll also see the spirit of rejection. Now notice, under these bold headings, you also see what are called symptoms. The first symptom under the spirit of rejection is addictive behavior. And addictions is actually what we're speaking about today. So as you look at this page and as you work through your workbook as well, you'll see here that addictive behaviors are caused by the spirit of rejection. Now, again, I want you to read and work through this packet in its entirety. But just for this next portion of the show, I wanted to bring that to your attention. The demonic spirit of rejection is the most common root cause of addictions. Rejection is the feeling of not being wanted, loved, accepted, or not feeling as if you're good enough. Rejection is such a huge cause of demonic bondage and something that must be addressed in order to be set free. Now, the root of rejection is actually fairly simple. It's just a case of a mistaken identity, also known as you simply not knowing who you are in Jesus Christ. It's not what you think about yourself or how you feel about yourself. It's not even about what your mother feel or your father feel. Maybe they said things like you will never amount to nothing. You'll never be good enough. It's not about what anyone else says or thinks about you. All that matters is what God and who God says you are. Now that we've identified the underlying root cause of addictions as the spirit of rejection, we can now take the necessary steps to move forward and overcome our addiction and move into freedom. As promised, I wanted to have a giveaway. Today's prize is a book titled Overcoming Rejection by Frank Hammond. This is an excellent book and it's great for anyone who wants to know and explore more about the spirit of rejection, exactly what it is. Now, how I'm going to give away this prize is everyone who shares the video between now and Wednesday at noon will be entered for a chance to win. I'm going to draw a name and I'm going to announce that winner Wednesday at noon. So stay tuned. That's all we have today for the first part of our Teaching Moment episode on freedom from addictions. The second part again will be airing the second Friday in September, right after our testimonial interview. Until then, I want to remind you to work through your packets. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at talking, TALKIN, with Trista at gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.